Well, I guess a good place to start would be how I came to suspect that I had implants. And very simply, I was a courier for FedEx in the early 2000s, and I had to deliver a lot of time-sensitive secrets, like to the courthouse and the blood bank and things of that nature. So, of course, you have to go through metal detectors, to get to the courthouse, to get to the judge's chambers. And of course, I would put my keys and my jewelry, the whole drill, on the side like everybody does. And then I would go through, the little chamber, and then they do the handheld, detector, and it would always go off. And then they would say, I go, what's going on, guys? And they would say, oh, well, it's just, your magnetic personality. So based on what I had been reading, because I was, starting to get into my healing then, I suspected that I had them, but I couldn't for the life of me figure out where they could be. And of course, I was busy raising a family then, so I just kind of put it on the back burner.
So then what happened? Was it just time to start researching and, confirm your suspicions or,
No,
you know?
actually, it came up again this past January. It was the first week of January, right after New Year's, and I couldn't sleep that night. I had a very bad migraine headache, and I started rubbing my head like you do when you have a headache, like the neuralgia that goes down the neck. And I was feeling my temple, and I'm like, there's a hole there. And then I felt the other side, and there was a matching hole. And then I just started, rubbing my head, and that's how I discovered all the bore holes for where the multi-lead needle electrodes had been inserted into my brain. Best of my recollection, that was 1967 when I was 5 years old.
So basically, you've lived with this your whole life. You just didn't know it.
Yeah, 57 years. Yeah. And of course, like I said before, we have programs to sublimate things to push the memories back down. There's, what do they call it? There's some kind of amnesia, where we're affected. We survivors were affected with this amnesia where we just sublimate, it's a firewall for the mind to protect from a psychiatric breakdown, basically.
Oh, I talked a little bit last night about how I think I called it, what did I call it? A kill switch. Everybody, survivors are programmed with, certain words and things like that, correct? You had told me about, a time that you almost weren't here because of a
Yeah.
trigger.
But that's actually, as I've learned in recent months, actually, that's called Omega program. Omega programming, like the end, Omega.
And so,
So,
what, did somebody accidentally say the trigger words?
yeah, my middle daughter, she was probably about 16 years old then, and I can't even recall what it was, but it elicited that, as you say, kill switch response, and I went to go get the butcher knife to slit my wrist. And of course, she saved my life. She didn't know what was going on. She's just an
Sure.
innocent kid.
Right, right, sure. I mean, and I guess what's scary about that is you don't know. Are there any other trigger words? I mean, not that anybody needs to say them, but uh, that make you do certain things.
Well, I know that I know keywords from back in the day. I know that manga, the Japanese anime
Mm-hmm.
cartoon, that's tied to my beta program, which is the sexualized human trafficking part of it.
Like, what things do you do when you get triggered?
Thankfully, I've had a lot of good helpers along the way. Anybody from Baptist ministers to my nurses in the United Nations, to very good therapists. I've got a lot of healing under my belt, but as I told you before, I don't feel like I'm ever going to be completely integrated, because it's like the metaphor. You take a beautifully formed egg and you smash it into a million pieces, and so how do you put that back together? 11:30, my friend. My friend from work shaved my head, and she was mortified, the poor thing, I mean, it's like, it's a nightmare, that I really don't want to share with anybody. I mean, I don't like it, and I'm sure nobody else likes it either.
And tell us the reason that you shaved your head.
So that all of the symbols and the boreholes could be easily visible to the naked eye for documentation. Because I plan to work with a neuroscientist. Parietal lobe, parietal lobe, frontal lobe, and temporal lobe. I don't know how this is going to negatively impact my health in the future. I don't know if I'm going to end up with dementia, brain cancer. I mean, it's really, really uncharted territory for me. So I have to work. I can't just go to my regular MD. He'll freak out. So we're seeking out the
Yeah.
services of a neuroscientist to kind of guide me, through my elderly years with this thing, because these things are not coming out of my head, so I'm going to have to learn how to live with them.
And I'm going to put these pictures up here, and I want you to walk us through these. This is you, of course, yesterday after the shaving, right?
Yeah, I don't know if you can enlarge it, but if you look at the crown of my head, there's actually a big crater right on the crown of my head, and
Oh, I see.
that's where the skull and bones insignia is carved into my head. And the skull and bones insignia was actually artwork. I guess that was their sick way of saying, okay, well, this is our masterpiece, or whatever we've done in here. And so then there's two boreholes on the right. When you see the other ones, you'll see two boreholes that are shaded in to the right side of the skull and bones, I guess, to kind of camouflage it. Underneath the skull and bones, there's a phallus, and next to the phallus, there's another skull, and under the skull and the phallus is a pyramid. So, I mean, these people must have been doing some heavy duty, because it's horrifying.
All right, I'm gonna go on to the next picture because you can see, and look, there's even more horrifying pictures. And we kind of looked at this. If y'all remember, if you were on last night's live and you looked at the ape skull or the monkey skull, like, I don't know what it was, but it was one of the articles that she had sent me, and it showed, if you remember, it showed that one looked a little bit different than this, but you can see how long these things are, that hang down. So tell us
Yeah,
exactly what we're looking at.
that's in the occipital lobe, which is in the back of the skull, and I guess that all hooks up to the stimoceiver, which is down in the cerebellum, which is in the base of the brain. It's just like a bunch of
Yeah.
circuitry and wires, like, that they can access with, from what I was described by the gentleman that I spoke to in Tampa today, they can access it with you're like an AM radio. It's terrifying.
Carol, it's horrifying to think that somebody is walking around with this in their head. I mean, of course, I know we're talking about years ago and technology wasn't what it is today. Today it would be tiny, which is, in my opinion, even more scary because you could be implanted and not even know. Okay, now what's going on here?
Okay, this is the metal detector. These are my friends using the metal detector to see if there's elevated rates, showing of a metal content in my skull.
And these are the results.
Yeah, iron, aluminum, magnets, and stainless and steel,
Wow.
which is a contraindication for having an MRI, because the magnetic resonance or whatever can latch on to,
Mm-hmm.
like, the ferrous metals, like the iron or stuff, and like dislodge it. So that's why I have to go to a neuroscientist, because I really don't know how I'm gonna, go forward with this.
Right, so you have never had an MRI then?
No, just skull X-rays, but I can't have an MRI. I don't know what I'm gonna do, actually.
When I worked in the hospital, like, you have to tell us if you've got any kind of metal, whether you were in a car accident and you've got, metal plates or whatever, because it will literally sizzle you. Um, Okay, let's go on. Now, let me tell you what I did here. The picture on the left is the picture that she sent me, and literally all I did was add contrast. That is the only editing I did just to make the lines darker. Okay, so you could see them a little
Yeah.
bit. So I can see what I think is a phallic symbol.
Yeah, it's under the skull and bones, which is the insignia of Yale University, and it's called the Brotherhood of Death. And both Stanley Milgram, who I remember distinctly, and now through the process of elimination and deductive reasoning, I know Delgado did the implants because he's the one that invented the stemoceiver. And when I was 5 years old, he was one of the only people that was qualified to do that very complicated surgery. So it stands to reason that Dr. Stanley Milgram and Dr. Jose Delgado, who are both Yale alum, collaborated because they both came to Yale University in 1960. And in my mind, that's case closed. It's a stemoceiver, and Delgado invented it. By the time it was implanted, the stemoceiver was, let's see, maybe 4 years old. So he was like the preeminent guy who was doing this. And since he and Milgram were at Yale at the same time, they actually arrived the same year. Like I said, through the process of elimination and deductive reasoning, they collaborated. And, I know Milgram definitely was with me because I saw him off and on through all my life, up until I was about 18 years old. But then I think Delgado only came for the surgery. And I believe he came to Duluth Air Force Base, which I have memories of the day when my head was wrapped in blood-soaked, gauze. And I think he only came for the surgery, which probably took about 14 or 15 hours. And I think they had us like on a conveyor belt back then. I think they were doing a lot of us. So he probably had to jet out and go do the next one. That's what I've been able to conclude.
I've got a few that are closer up. Like people don't have this in their head, these patterns. Like you would have a very terrible accident to have, these kind of markings, but on top of that, they would be random lines, not things that you can recognize. I hope y'all can see those circles up in here and then how it goes down. But yeah, so this was the area
that we were targeting to, because that's where I believe that the implants were, because that's where most of the boreholes were. And I watched the surgery that he had done on one of the monkeys in the early days, in the early 60s, and they used dental drills and amalgam, like the amalgam that you would put in a filling to fill up the hole. So I've got dental cement in my head.
Oh my God. Let me ask you this real quick before we keep looking at pictures, but I know you were like 5, 6 years old, but do you have any memory of having a sore head or anything from that time?
Yeah. I came home with blood-soaked bandages, and I was, I guess, heavy anesthesia or heavy narcotics. And I remember like saying, "Oh, my head hurts," and it was like reverberating or echoing through my head. And my parents got me out of the car, and they tried to make me walk to the house. And I put my hand to my head, which was blood-soaked bandages, and I looked at my hand, and I saw the blood, like glistening on my hand, and then I just passed out, and that's all. That's the last I remember. That's always been a memory that I never lost. But when you're growing up, you're like, oh well, maybe I was sick, or you're not thinking anything nefarious. Hopefully, when you're a little kid, not normally.
All right, now this, Mark, what is this on the back of your head?
I don't know if you can see it, but there's 2 boreholes above the red mark. And then there's a dark shading underneath the red mark. And my friend that I met in Tampa today has one, and he says that's where his is. And that would be the general vicinity of what's called the cerebellum, which is like the base of the brain.
I can see, if you follow that red up, you can see that little circle. Can y'all see that little circle? I've got my mouse on it, but I don't think you can see my mouse. And I see like like a semicircle on this side, but
Yeah. So the actual receiver, my friend in
okay.
Tampa told me that his is in the cerebellum, and he goes, that's where mine is likely also, because that's where they like to put it, and that's previously undisclosed information to me.
And that looks more like a triangle to me. Or
Yeah, because they're New World Order nut jobs, and they love that symbology. And I guess that's their brand. That's how they brand their victims. And
it's bad enough that they were doing this, but to put marks like that on your head, like a signature, is beyond what is the word? I can't even think of a word bad enough.
barbaric, crimes
Yes.
against humanity, mutilation.
Yes.
I'm heavy into the UN and the articles on human rights, and articles 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the Geneva Convention prohibits torture, mutilation, unnecessary medical treatments, and it talks a lot about bioethics. This is all crimes against humanity, and as long as I have a breath in me, I'm going to pursue it. And I hope that we wake up a lot of sleepers along the way so that they can get integrated.
Let me go back to this. Okay. So, yeah, you see the triangle. Seeing this kind of stuff, it adds insult to injury. You know what I'm saying? Now, what is this that we're looking at? Again, the photo on the
Okay.
right, all I did was add contrast.
Mhm. Okay, that is another CIA brand, and that is a tattoo. If you look closely, you can see the little pin pricks, and that matches the one on my head. And that's their good housekeeping seal of approval. They love that symbology. I've got that junk all over my body. I mean, that's just two that I've showed you. I can't get rid of most of it, and so yeah, it's a nasty daily reminder for me.
So, when you say this is all over your body, is it this same symbol, like the two spots and then the one lower, or just the two?
Yeah, I just have triangles and little skulls and phalluses like everywhere. It's weird. They're very demented and deranged bunch.
Um, okay, now this, I think this was maybe closer to your forehead.
That's
Is
on that's on what would be considered, I guess, the temporal lobe, and you can clearly see that that's a drill hole or a bore hole. If you enlarge it, you can see where the drill went in. I mean, it looks just like if you drilled into a 2x4.
Yeah, I mean, I can see it. I can't enlarge it anymore. But yeah, I can see what you're saying. If you could look in the center of that red spot, you see, yeah, more like a drill. It's got a certain shape. This was horrifying to me. I'm assuming that this line that goes down the back of your head, and you can see it. I've
Yeah,
got it. I've got it even closer. But if you look at the picture on the left, see where her mirror goes? It kind of goes through the center. But y'all can see that. I mean, that is bizarre. That is not
that,
on a normal
that
human skull.
yeah, that's called a pulse generator. That's actually the delivery system that sends the impulses and the neuromodulation to all the different parts of the brain to elicit whatever the response they're trying to get out of me. And I know that they like to disable the little stemoceiver in my cerebellum, because I have involuntary arm movements, like in the middle of the night, involuntary leg movements. They like to make me fall down in public. They love to humiliate me and make me trip over my own feet. So whenever they do that, that they're accessing the cerebellum, which which controls some of your body movements.
Oh my God. They are controlling, I guess, when they want to, things like
Now,
this. This is
but
horrifying.
God,
Yeah, here's the thing. People say, oh, well, yes, things happened. The government did these things. We know because of the FOIA and because, they've let go a lot of the information. We know that this is true. It's not just conspiracy theory. But they stopped all that. They stopped all that, Carol. What would you say to that?
I would say that most of the population has ingested nanoparticles, and now they use the cell towers and the satellites to control us remotely.
And that's exactly where I was going is yes, the nanotechnology, and I told you last night, they can put it in your food. You would never know. You would
Yeah.
never know. Just the articles, Carol, that we read about how they're trying to sell this technology, so you'll be willing, like to cure Parkinson's, cure depression. Like, this is a cure. This is
Mm-hmm.
not a pill you have to take. So it sounds like, oh, yeah, I want to be cured.
Mm-hmm.
But even from the stuff in the articles, you can see exactly what they're doing. They're not really secretive about it because it can also read your thoughts. I mean, it
Mm-hmm.
really sounds like tinfoil hat stuff, but it's not.
They might do some good little things here and there, just for virtue signaling, but the underlying motive is not good. I believe honestly, Silky and Chat, that God gave me, somewhat of an override, to somewhat rise above this, and I think I'm hoping I'm winning. I really need to win because I've been down for a long time.
Look, Carol, the fact that you survived all of this and including the trafficking and everything that you went through and you still have your sanity and you're still alive and fighting, to me, you've already won. I'm sure they're very angry
Yeah,
that you
well,
have done so
I'm
well.
unescaped equipment. It probably cost hundreds of thousands of dollars then. In today's dollar, it might be in the millions. So I call
Yeah.
myself, the one that got away, is an escaped piece of equipment, and they're mad as hell about it.
I'm going to put this picture back up here. I mean, what a testimony. I mean,
Yeah,
man.
that little piece of wiring, multi-lead electrode right there. That's called a pulse generator, and that distributes all of the neuromodulation to all the rest of the lobes.
Dang. Yeah, I've never seen anything like that in my whole life. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to put this, I hope this video plays. Yeah, this is the top of your head. This is the video.
Yeah, there's the skull and bones insignia, compliments of Delgado and Milgram.
And Milgram was was your primary. Yeah, you can see it better. Yeah.
And you can see the phallus right there, right below it. And then under that, well, to the side of it, you can see another skull. And below that, you can see a little pyramid.
It's crazy that I mean, to think that our government did this, I can't. Like, there are no words to express how angry this makes me. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to put it on here. And please, y'all, if you're either live or on the replay, when this is done, please share it somewhere. I just want to get this message out.